CDC, DHEC, and the state education superintendent are all recommending that students wear face masks in schools. But again, that's not happening. Our State House insiders join us now with reaction. We're going to start with Democratic strategist Antoine Seawright.
Seems like, once again, elected officials are playing political football with people's lives. We know this virus is real, in spite of those who walk around the very state we live in the very country we live in denial about the seriousness of this virus. We know it's real. I've had family members personally impacted by this virus. I think we all do. This Delta variant is very serious. It is breaking the speed limit across South Carolina. When the CDC recommendations came out, I was so thankful that DHEC leadership supported those efforts, because the one thing about science and the one thing about the health experts, they have no reason to play partisan political games. I heard the governor's press conference when he says that parents know what's best for their children, regardless of what the experts said. I think that statement was crazy as hell. In fact, all the parents I know depend on those who are experts in their respective fields to get advice so they can best know how to deal with their children. While we may not have a mask mandate in place in South Carolina, I think most reasonable people would agree that we need to get our children vaccinated, adults vaccinated, and we need to follow the CDC guidelines.
This is really an issue right now of personal responsibility, which we've talked about before. It is nowhere in here does it say that parents cannot have their children wear a mask. And that's the part that we've got to understand here. What they're talking about is there was a portion of the budget that members of the House and Senate put in there that removed an ability for mask mandates to be done in South Carolina. That being the case, you cannot mandate it for the schools, but it can be recommended, and I think it's a smart move by the part of parents if they do not feel comfortable with their children in school without some form of PPE, whether it's a mask or it's a shield or some combination thereof. It's important for those parents to be able to do that. And there may be circumstances where you have a parent who has a condition or a family member in their household that has a condition that would warrant that, because Antoine is right. This variant is moving much more rapidly, and we're seeing that happen. Cases are on the rise, but it has not been as deadly as the previous variants have been. And one of the reasons for that has been because people have gotten vaccinated. That issue has now been taken to a different level.
Respectfully, South Carolina, as the data has showed us, 41 out of 46 counties are in that window where we should be wearing masks inside, even though we're vaccinated, because the number of people that should be vaccinated have not. We still, Dave, respectfully, have a lot of parents walking around in denial about this virus. People have taken one shot, will not get the second. Those kids are being taught, not your kids, of course, but there are kids who are walking around who are being taught, like, you know what, to hell with the mask. I don't need this. My parents are not doing it. That's dangerous, because they're going to impact other people they are around. And you know the seriousness of this virus. Once it spreads like a California wildfire. That's why we have to be really careful. That's why it's so important for our leaders, regardless of their political party, to step up to the plate to do the right thing. And if you look like me, Dave, you and I talk about this privately and publicly. At the end of the day, the impact on this virus has had tremendous impact. In fact, 2 to 3 times more on communities of color than any other community. And that's why I'm so passionate and serious about this. And the fact of the matter is, my sister's a teacher in rural South Carolina. We know the challenges when it comes to access. She's a principal, in rural South Carolina, Swanson. I know the challenges of getting the word out about the vaccine and so forth. We're going to have a real sticky situation we're going to enter in the fall if our leaders do not change course.
Let me move on now to an issue that was raised about 3 or 4 weeks ago in the race for governor, and that's the legalization of marijuana use in South Carolina. I know the election is still a little more than a year away. The primaries are closer than that. Is this going to be one of the big issues as we move forward with the 2022 campaign, Dave?
It absolutely is going to be one of those major issues that's going to come up. The legalization of marijuana has been something that you have been seeing stretching across America. There are more than 40 states thus far who have legalized medical marijuana. Now, here's the thing on that particular front. more than almost half of those states have now gone back in and have legalized recreational marijuana. So you've got 40 states that have done it for medical. 18 of those states have now said we're going to also do it for recreational. It is opening up a doorway and creating a methodology for the distribution of marijuana. And the marijuana of the 70s and 80s is very different than the marijuana of today. The concentrations are higher. So you've got a law enforcement and you've got key conservative communities that I know of, both in the white and the black communities, that have been looking at this going, you know, this is a bigger issue than simply just, do we want to make it available to a small select group of people who have conditions? So, you know, it's really come down to, as long as it's, you know, approved by the FDA, it's just prescribed by a doctor and distributed by a pharmacist, no different than any other pill or medication, law enforcement doesn't have that big of an issue with it, because that's at the federal level where the law has to make a change in order for it to be effective across the entire country.
Absolutely, it's going to be an issue in this governor's race. I think it will probably be a real issue in the Democratic primary between the candidates that have announced. At the end of the day, I saw the governor's press conference. He was standing in front of the prison talking about that the legalization of marijuana is not a good deal. If the governor and the cameras would have gone behind those bars, they would have known the disproportionate amount of people that have been impacted because of the criminalization of marijuana. And majority of those people look like me. People's lives have been destroyed. Families have been ripped apart. Communities have been split in half because of the criminalization of marijuana in this country. So I think we're going to have to take a hard look. There's science and evidence from the experts, going back to that word, Dave, that talks about the medical benefits of it. A number of states are starting to change gears and shift gears towards the legalization. And for people in South Carolina, there's an argument to be made on the revenue standpoint, because we're going to get to a place where we have to start creating revenue at some point in the state. And there is something to be said and to be looked at when it comes to what legalization of marijuana can mean from bringing revenue into the state to fix some of the long-term problems in the state.
All right, Dave and Antoine, guys, thank you so very much for your time. A quick break.